Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rifttboundramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and today is December 25th, 2025, which means Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays for everyone that celebrates, and a Happy New Year for everyone across the globe, as I probably won't be making another video after this one until next year. That's because, ever since the release of Spiritforged over in China, we haven't really got a bunch of updates in regards to that. That is until recently this past week, we have updates on the Nexus Pack for Set 2 over in China, as well as the regional prize card and the early developments of what is going to be the Spiritforged Meta game, at least of what we've seen in China. If you're new to the channel, of course, subscribe so you never miss a news or updates video, if anything Riftbound related. And of course, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So first up, we've got the Spiritforged Nexus Night Prize Pack, the cards of which that exist inside of them, and what's going to be given inside of them. Of course, thanks for Pound Report. I took your little graphic, so I appreciate that, Marshall. But basically, as you can see, what they said is true, and we are going to be getting a lot of these Proving Grounds exclusive cards, as well as some showcase cards here from Set 2. Of course, we have the Spirit Blossom or Sakura Blossom runes that are going to be in here. These are going to be foil, of course. And the only thing that we really don't know is like what is the equivalent of like the GG Easy Teemo that we're going to see. And the biggest thing on everybody's mind that I'm sure you've noticed is that yes, Annie, Yi, Lux, Garen, and their signature spells, their champion units are going to be in here. But there's one big card that we're missing, and it's Flash. So I would normally not even care to bring this up, but the reason why this matters is that if this is going to be the same for us in America, Flash is like the number one problem card. And the reason I say problem card, it's because it's very expensive. It's a lot of the reason why the Proving Grounds has its secondary market price right now for if you can't get a hold of them. And so Flash not being here is a bit of a worry in my head, as well as some of the other exclusive cards that are inside of the Proving Grounds, but we know that those aren't very competitive, so I'm not really worried about those. But I think this can still be, fixed in the sense of Flash could be the Summoner Skirmish promo, which, I think is actually probably smart if they want a bunch of people to come out to Summoner Skirmishes. It could, of course, also be the equivalent of what that GG Easy Teemo is, which means it's still going to have a very expensive price tag on it, but that means there will be more inside of the uh, pool. They can still, of course, release it in a future Nexus Night, but that being the big missing card here, I think is of note. But there are some very important ones here, even just within Set 2, such as the Stellar Corn Herder, which I know is really popular in the Irelia decks, as well as things like Eye of the Herald. So if you're a fan of Azir, you can get your hands on one of those, and then some of these other low-cost equipments like Doran's Blade, Doran's Ring, and armor or cloth armor. So again, there's some good stuff here. And again, the Proving Grounds cards being here is just a big win. So awesome to see these. And of course, they can still change for the English ones, but I don't really expect that. Moving on, we've also now seen the Champion prize card for the regionals that are going to be going on in China coming up here shortly within January and I think going into February. And that Dashing Ezreal is going to be the Champion prize card. And so it is not only just the Dashing Ezreal skin, but it is the Mind Champion unit, which I think a lot of people really do like. This is the one where you can pay the power cost and you can retreat it, etc. And it deals its might, when it's being attacked or when it does attack. So this one is a good card. I think it's better than like the Misfortune Buccaneer that we were handing out in the first regional. So I'm glad to see that this one is getting that same treatment. And lastly for the video, we are going to go over the early beginnings of the Spiritforged metagame based off of the city challenges that are happening over in China. So I think the majority of these took place on the 19th of December, and I'm only going to be going through the highest placings of the unique champion legends, and I'm only going through basically what made top 8 of those city challenges. So if you don't see a legend here that you're a big fan of, well, it's because it didn't do well enough to make the top 8. If you're obviously noticing that we're not going to be going out of the 3 city challenges, we're not going to go over, what is that, 18 oh, quick math. No, 24 legends. Of course, I'm not going to go over 24 legends because there's going to be some overlap. So, the first place legend from Tianjin Station is not Darius. This is Draven. Draven did end up getting a first place finish here and is showing a very early emergence of what this like Fury Chaos deck is going to look like, specifically for Draven, not necessarily for Annie. So a lot of Spiritforged cards are obviously going to be included in this deck with two of the Draven champion unit. We've got even Angle Shot seeing some play, 3 full copies of the Spinning Axe, which is the signature equipment that Draven has access to. Hard Bargain, one of. Switcheroo, one of. Of course, we see the Ride the Wind inside of the deck, that card being very, very good. Overzealous Fan. This is basically Fighter Flight, but on a unit. And then also 3 copies of Fighter Flight, 3 copies of Falling Star. Treasure Hunters is the new one. Double Kaisa, 2 copies of Vex. That was pretty surprising, but it makes a lot of sense because we need to do combat tricks with Draven. Triple Darius, of course, and then this new rare that I think a lot of people are going to be playing if you're playing the Fury domain, which is this Ferris Forerunner. A lot of people are really including this one. It's not necessarily like Watcher equivalent, but it does give you some really good sticking power for this domain. So early beginnings of what people are doing with Fury cards and also Chaos cards, of course. And this is specifically with Draven, which has to win some combats to get some draw power. Moving on, at the same city challenge, we got 3rd place, and Irelia ended up taking it down. And this is kind of, if you've heard the murmurs from a lot of people, I know like Gale Wins has had a lot of eyes on Irelia, and this is very much this kind of like Voltron style deck. And what that means is that it obviously is not playing a lot of units. There are exactly 2 copies of the Calm champion unit of Irelia, and then there are 3 copies of Treasure Hunter, and there are 2 copies of Stellar Corn Herder, and that's it. Everything else in this deck is either some sort of spell, which is either like a combat trick like On Guard or Discipline, things like Defy or Not So Fast for counterspell potential, and then the rest of them are equipments that you're basically just going to be putting on your one unit and then doing a bunch of movement with it because Irelia, as well as some of the other cards that exist inside of here, like Ride the Wind. This deck is really cool. I think this deck is so awesome and fun to actually mess around with. I really recommend someone giving it a try. Obviously, I think Defiant Dance, which is Irelia's signature spell, is one of the best signature spells we've seen in the entire game. And this deck is just a very, very different way of playing Riftbound. And I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it is very new, and I don't know if this will still end up at the top of the like leaderboards of the metagame, but it is going to be a new deck style and archetype that people are going to have to learn how to play around. So Irelia is having some success. I don't think that's really a surprise to people, but here is an example of what is doing well. Also at the Tianjin Station City Challenge, in 5th place, we had a brand new updated Master Yi deck. And so I just wanted to highlight some of the new cards on Body and Calm that Master Yis get to take advantage of. So things like Punch First, I think were no-brainers for a lot of people because it only costs 1 real energy, of course the 2 power costs, and is basically like Primal Strength but a little bit weaker. And then we see, Not So Fast as like a different version of Counterspell. Guardian Angel being an equipment, which gives some might, as well as functioning of what Zhonya's Hourglass did. 3 copies of Sea Monkey is pretty cool. We got Thwonk in here, Lonely Poro, and then also Trinity Force here for some extra ability of gaining extra points for if you can hold on to a battlefield, which is what Master Yi is really good at. Akshan is also being seen here, one of the new rares from Spiritforged. Really gets to take advantage of some of these gears that people are going to be playing. And obviously, if it's an equipment, you also get to immediately attach it. Navori Scout for a deflect unit makes a lot of sense, honestly. Rune Runner I like a lot in this deck because it basically has hexproof, which means it can't be chosen by enemy spells or abilities. You have to fight this guy. There's basically no other way to do it unless you have a board wipe. And then still a single copy of White Flame Protector. And then the sideboard, at least for this player, is all one-ofs, including Janna from the new set, and I really like that one a lot. But Master Yi, the same kind of game plan, just with new tools to its disposal. Moving on to the next city challenge from Chengdu. In 1st place, yes, you guessed it, it is the new and improved Kaisa. And so we are going to take a look at some of the new cards that these Kaisa decks are playing. So the biggest thing here is, obviously there's a Blood Rush, which is like kind of like Cleave, but not really because it has Repeat. Still playing Cleaves, Retreats, Hextech, Ray, Stupefy, those are all the same. Gym Jammer as a new unit for the deck. Piercing Light, this one's only playing one, but I know a lot of people are really big on this one, especially in Kaisa. Raven Bloom is still the staple. Falling Stars, of course. New unit Forecaster, which gives your mechs vision. So that's really cool because we are going to be playing some other mechs, including the Gym Jammer that we already talked about. We have a single copy of Rocket Barrage, which is very interesting to me because I don't actually think that card's very good. 2 copies of Darius still, a progress day. There's that Ferris Forerunner that we were talking about, and it seems like Acathian Rain has kind of made its way out of the deck, at least for this one, and Time Warp is the main spell we're going to be copying, or leading to at the late game. Of course, Thousand Tail Watcher still being here, being a very good card. So, updated Kaisa list here, and it looks pretty solid, looks pretty good, and it did end up getting first place. Moving on, we do have a new contender here. In third place, we've got Lucian, Purifier, which is of the Fury and Body domains. And so this deck is going to be a lot different and, utilizing equipment to make our units get even more assault when they're attacking. Biggest things here is that the orange Lucian, so Body Domain Lucian champion unit, is a full 3 copies of in this deck, which means it is just initially showing a lot of success when you play it in this sort of style of deck. And then, of course, we've already showcased things like Punch First in the Body Domain with Master Yi. And then we still want to play a lot of these cheap equipment. So Hex Drinker is in here, Longsword, Doran's Blade as well. And it is also playing 2 copies of Bone Shiver, which is the When I Conquer Channel a Rune Exhausted. Ferris Forerunner, hey look, here it is again, only 1 copy. And then Triple Kaisa, Triple Rune Runner makes a lot of sense. I even like the Confront Sea Monkey we're seeing play here is a really nice 2-drop for these Body Domain decks. First Mate, Gym Jammer, etc. Makes a lot of sense to me. And it's even playing 3 copies of the signature spell, Relentless Pursuit, as it is a movement-based spell. We know that this can be very good, like with Leona and Sets. So Lucian is going to be a contender, at least in the beginning. And the coolest thing about this Lucian deck as well, if you look at the battlefields, all 3 of them are Spiritforged battlefields, which is really, really cool, but has obviously plenty of room for that to change. Moving on, also in the Chengdu Station City Challenge, in 6th place is Fiora. That's right, the actual legend that they picked for one of their starter decks. You have it right here. And the funny thing is that it is playing 2 copies of the new Order Domain champion unit, and then the full 3 copies of the old one. I like, obviously, the old one from set 1. As soon as you get a buff on it in any capacity, or with the new technology, you put an equipment on it, it is now mighty, and it gets all the things that you want it to have, which is deflect, ganking, and shield. So, of course, we're playing things like Warmog's Armor. We're playing a full 3 copies of Punch First. Sabotage still being in this deck makes sense. Triple Unsung Hero. I didn't think this card was going to be very good, but apparently it does work when you do, put things on like a BF Sword, which I'm pretty sure gives 3 might. There's that Triple Lucian Merciless, which is that Body Domain one. Triple Set and Triple Akshan makes a lot of sense. And even a 1 copy of Strike Down, which is like a weird challenge. The biggest surprise to me is that I thought Riposte was going to be a lot more impactful for this legend, but there's only 1 copy main board and 1 copy in the side, so maybe it's just not as good in the early beginnings of this metagame, but that card is fantastic. So, really cool Fiora list. It did end up getting 6th place at Chengdu, so maybe that means we're going to see more Fiora. Also at Chengdu, we have a 7th place Yasuo list. That's right, Yasuo making it into the top cuts here for this event. And this deck has a lot of new cards, so I'm just going to go through a big list, and we'll kind of talk about what this deck is looking like, which is Cull, Not So Fast, Hard Bargain, Overzealous Fan, Lonely Poro, Treasure Hunter, Heart of Dark Ice, Stellar Corn, Herder, Navori Scout, and the new Irelia champion unit for the Calm domain. So I think this is also that kind of mini impersonation of what the Irelia deck was doing. We're only playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, this is way more units, right? 12, 15. Yeah, there's a lot more units, but it's still kind of taking the same technology, right? We're playing a couple of equipments, like Cull. We're playing gears like Heart of Dark Ice, which are for giving your units some more might. That's got to be really good with the Yasuo champion unit. I can only imagine, because when it attacks, it will deal its might to a unit. And of course, we have that Last Breath for the signature spell. So it is a different style of deck, but does take advantage of doing a lot of movement-based things, which you can even see from the Overzealous Fans, which are being played alongside 2 copies of Fight or Flight. Biggest thing here, no ride the wins in the main board or sideboard, so I think there's a world where this deck can evolve and still play some very high impact cards, but this one specifically, not really needing them. But 7th place, Yasuo here in Chengdu. And then moving on to the last city challenge, in first place, I did, this wasn't on my list, but you better believe it. First place was Victor, and this deck plays so many 3-ofs. Specifically, the new cards from Spiritforged, 3 copies of Bella's Breath, Blood Money. We also have Wages of Pain, Drag Under. Those are all the new cards. And then for units, there's really only one. There's only one unit in this deck, and it is your champion unit. The rest of this deck is just removal, which is kind of crazy because I have no idea how else this deck wins aside from generating recruits with Victor. It's a really interesting way of playing the deck of just hard removal and then moving things in, but it got first place, which makes sense on why it's sideboarding things like Divine Judgment and King's Edict. This deck is kind of insane, guys. Very cool list. I wonder if we will see other legends create this kind of similar control style deck, because now we have so many ways of getting rid of units in the game from either damage or just directly killing them, that this is a way to play the game now. And it did succeed. It got first place. In third place, the same domain combination. That's right, Lux getting third place here. And this one is a similar story, but it does play more units. Obviously, the biggest thing of note here is that it is the Jace Mana Progress deck, where you can kill off a gear and basically sneak in this Vanguard Armory card, which allows you to make 3 recruits every single turn, which you then use Lux to play high-cost spells like Recruit the Vanguard, Singularity, Progress Day, Imperial Decree, Drag Under, and Time Warp. You'll draw cards as you play them, but we're using them for removal and then kind of sneaking things in to get points. Very similar to that Victor deck, but it still plays units along the way, such as like Echoes, and we even have like card sharps in here to generate some treasures. Or not treasures, gold tokens. And yeah, so this list is very cool. It even is playing the Grand Plaza, which makes sense because we're playing Vanguard Armory with the Jace, and then things like Time Warp are going to help get holds and really push this deck over the edge. But getting third place here for Lux is kind of surprising for me, but it means we have to keep our eyes on her for now into the future. And then moving on, we have an honorable mention, and the reason I say honorable mention is because it did get 9th place, which did break my rule. But Ari did end up making an appearance and doing pretty well, using some new cards from Spiritforged, specifically like the Janna, and then we also have Emperor's Divide, Desert's Call, Thwonk, and then Feral Strength. Still doing the Time Warp shenanigans that we know that Ari really does to have success in the game right now, and then of course that top end, those accelerate units like Thousand Tail Watcher and Dazed Faithful make a lot of sense. So not a lot to be said here. It's not a lot of new stuff, but it is still interesting to see. And maybe Time Warp is kind of the name of the game right now, because a lot of these decks were playing it, and the Mind Domain is shaping up to be very successful. So even if you're not playing these legends, you might be interested in ones like Orange still, because they might find a way as long as you play cards like Time Warp. But that's going to be it for today's video. Again, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. If you've been supporting the channel for the beginning of this year when I've made it, I look forward to your support into the next year. As soon as these Arcane bundles coming in, I plan on doing a giveaway, which I'll showcase, of course, a lot more at the beginning of the video when I finally get that going. But, so yeah, stick around. We have much more going through for Riftbound, and only more excitement to come as we are only kicking things off here. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and I will see you all in the next one.